at where iron in your body can possibly come from, so dietary iron. And first we're just going to review, why does your body need iron? Physical growth, neurological development, and oxygen transport to all cells, and including muscles. And how much iron is in your body? A really very small percentage by mass when you look at the other elements in our body, and of course not all in the head. And so whereabouts is iron used in your body? And you've got 4 plus an extra area, and you can pause to look at that slide in more detail. And we can look at iron in the circulatory system, present in blood, in red blood cells as the compound hemoglobin. And on the right you can see the biochemical view of the addition of oxygen and the loss of oxygen from hemoglobin. And also carbon dioxide is transported in the blood to be exhaled and excreted. And iron in myoglobin in muscles, again needed for the movement of the body, the skeletal muscles there. And indeed in the skeleton itself, red blood corpuscles are formed in red bone marrow, and are obviously needed for keeping the oxygen supply in the blood. Iron in the liver and the spleen, both sort of store some iron in there, but in the spleen the hemoglobin is being broken down from aged red blood corpuscles, and then can all be reused. And pause to see this one if you want to know about iron in different enzymes and what they are doing. And just as a starter, make a list, or if you've got this diagram in front of you, circle foods that you think contain usable amounts of iron. And iron comes in 2 forms, called heme iron and non-heme iron in food sources. And either type is good for your body, right amounts. You don't want too little, you don't want too much. Heme iron comes from meat sources, and some have more than others. Non-heme iron comes from plant sources, and some have much less than others. And see if you can name different sources here, and at the end you can go back and to the previous diagram to add ones that you'd missed, or change ones that weren't quite right. So heme iron comes from meat, seafood, and about 14 to 18% of heme iron in the sources are available, say from mixed diets. And the heme has non-heme in meat as well. So non-heme iron comes mainly from plant sources, for example spinach. A smaller percentage of non-heme iron is available from these vegetable sources. We're going to look at first the heme from animal protein, and you can pause to look at the variety, and we're going to look at each one in a little more detail. And so when we look at beef, red meat, which has more iron in it than the less red meats. For example, in ground beef hamburger, you've got 1.8 milligrams of iron, about 10% of your recommended daily value in 4 ounces. And you can pause to look at the other food items and their percentages. If we go on to poultry, here we can look at, for example, chicken, 0.3 milligrams in a 4 ounce amount of chicken, about 2% of your recommended daily value requirement for iron in there, and pause to look at chicken wings, roast turkey. Then if we look at some seafood here, well, shellfish in particular, and if we look at crab's legs, about 3 ounces of the meat from crab's legs, 0.1 of a milligram, 2% of the recommended daily value, and again pause to look at other ones. More seafood in fish, so cod, again, like the crab's legs, 0.1 of a milligram, 2% of the recommended daily amount in about 3 ounces, 80 grams of the food. And so look at this again and circle food items containing heme sources, or make a list of them. So pause whilst you do that. Then we go on to non-heme. So we've got eggs, which are animal source. The rest are going to be plant-based here. And they are harder to absorb than the animal heme sources. And so circle a few food items here that contain non-heme iron sources. So pause whilst you do that. We'll look at some more in detail. Eggs, 1 milligram of iron, about 6% of the daily value in a single egg. And for nuts, vary slightly, but here we've got peanuts, about 0.4 of a milligram, 2% of your recommended daily value, and about 1 ounce, 28 grams of peanuts. Then if we look at beans, the red beans there, about half a cup of beans, just over 4 ounces, 2 milligrams of iron, 10% of your recommended daily value. And then looking at breads, and remembering some breads that you buy are actually fortified with minerals, including iron, but just looking at whole wheat bread here with a slice, 1 milligram of iron, 6% of your recommended daily value. Different breads will vary, and you can follow that link there if you want to find out more. Milk, not much iron in forms of cow's milk, none in fat-free, 0.1 of a milligram, in fact less than 2% of your recommended daily value. Soy milk, 1 milligram, 6% recommended daily value, and pause to read about the link to breast milk and formula and amounts of iron for babies. Then if we look at pastas, and 1 cup of pasta, 1.7 milligrams of iron, and here from the pasta, 10% of your recommended daily value. Seaweed is indeed a seafood too, but differently. And here we have roasted seaweed sheet, about half an ounce, 14 grams, 15% of your recommended daily value. Tofu, about 3 ounces, 85 grams, 1.44 milligrams of iron, 8% of your recommended daily value. And go on to leafy greens, but not all greens, vegetables there will have a significant iron content, but they will have other useful dietary values as well. So 2 cups of spinach contain 2 milligrams of iron, about 10% of your recommended daily value. Some foods, bread and breakfast cereal, here's some breakfast cereal, are fortified with iron. But again, be careful, because some cereals, yes, they're fortified, but are high in sugar and low in fiber. So make choices where, yes, they're fortified, but lower in sugar and higher in fiber to benefit your diet. And you can look at some foods with their iron content. Pause to follow up with the top checkout link, and then dietary guidelines for all Americans and the My Plate recommendations. So the uptake of iron in your diet is increased by other parts of your dietary components. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid in citrus foods, helps you take in more of the iron that is in your diet. Strangely enough, stomach acid. So you're not going to add acid, but that helps increase the uptake of iron. Vitamin B12, folic acid, and eating meat products with non-heme sources, i.e. the omnivore diet, helps the uptake of iron in the food sources. Vitamin A, and you can pause to look at the molecules of vitamin C and vitamin B12. And then some foodstuffs decrease the amount of iron that you can take up from a food source. So you've got phytates, phytic acids in grains and beans. And again, you can pause and look at the molecule. Polyphenols in cereals and legumes, cereals, grains and peas and beans. Tea and coffee decrease your iron uptake. And no one's really sure about calcium decreasing iron uptake, but you can read what's there. And these are the amounts that you need at different stages in life. Males and females are different because of menstruation. And obviously, if pregnancy will make a difference as well. And most people get sufficient from a varied diet. Don't self-medicate for additional iron. Get a health professional to advise you if you do indeed need more. You can have too much. And for those who don't have blood loss, menstruation, or gastric problems with loss of blood, wound, etc., you're getting enough from a good diet, and there are complaints, problems if you have too much. So if we look at dietary supplements, so it can be part of a multivitamin, or it can be a single iron taken as a additional medication, come supplement, but use when doctor instructed, and don't have more than recommended for your gender and age by your doctor, and keep out of reach of children. Different of the supplements have different amounts of iron in them, and you can pause to look at that and look at the formula of each of them. And so we can look at eating in space and the meals that they have, and you can pause to look at one or more of the following videos from the NASA link that's given there. And we're looking here that you need to get enough iron in your body, but astronauts might get too much iron during space flight because they sort of end up with fewer blood cells. So if their dietary intake stays the same, but the number of red blood cells decreases, you could have an excess. So there's more about this, and you can pause to check out those sources there. And finally, find out more. So more information at the source there that goes into some of the historical looking at blood and the importance of iron in the diet.